Hello and welcome to another edition of the Skycast from Fantasy Football Scout, a sort of Sky Sports fantasy football version of the FPL focused Scoutcast. Today is special, it's Overhaul time, so any questions you have in the live stream, fire away and we'll do our best to answer them. Well, Luke will, and we have a stack of other questions already from you to tackle. We'll also reveal our own teams and plans. My name is Joe and joining me is Luke. Luke, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Freshly come out of my hard drive full of Excel spreadsheets, planning for all the mayhem that is to come following the overhaul.
Yeah, it's exciting time. So I'm actually wildcarding in FPL this week as well. So,
oh my god,
which is quite tricky because you have got to look at similar things. You've got to look at the fixtures coming up. You've got to look at the good players, the form players. But obviously, it's completely different, Sky, because you've got match days. You've got a different captain. Ideally each match day, and of course the whole thing's around blanks and double game weeks don't really affect the game in the same way, so different things to tackle. So what we've done is we've got a team that's a sort of a blueprint team. So this is your team. Now it's interesting. You sent me a couple of pictures. One I thought was going to be your differential team, and one was going to be your sort of this is a good structured, normal, templatey type team.
Yeah.
In reality, what you sent me was a blueprint team, which is for anyone, and your differential team is in fact your main team, which we're going to come to shortly. So in the meanwhile, what we'll do is we'll have a look at your blueprint team. So this is sort of a type of structure that someone will go to, a good starting point when you're doing your overhaul. And I'll go through that. What we've got here is we've got Henderson in goal. Very reliable, cheap goalkeeper with great fixtures. And then you've gone for triple Liverpool defence. So double or triple Liverpool defence looks key. We've got Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, who's legendary in this game, Robertson. And then you've gone for a 5-3-2 system there with Sionju, who's great value at 6.2. Baldock, who's great value at around the same price. And then you've got De Bruyne, who'll be heavily owned. Traore, who's very cheap for his price, for what he offers. Wolves have great fixtures. Grealish, was just man of the match machine. We hope. Aguero going to be a captain for that all-important West Ham game, and then you've got Salah as well. So it's a good sort of starting point to look at discussion. So tell me about that. So I've gone through that just partly for the benefit of those listening to the podcast version, but tell us about some of those players, tell us about that structure and why it's a good sort of starting point for an overhaul.
Okay, so basically I put this team together first of all, and I always like to do this without taking into account any fixtures really in terms of individual days. Anyway, I'm aware of who's got good fixtures, who's got bad fixtures. So basically taking captains out of the equation and just looking at who I would want as a team if we didn't have any of that and we just sort of set it up for the rest of the season. And I feel like that team would be really good because we're covering, like you say, triple Liverpool defence. They've obviously got great games pretty much from here on out, and they're probably the best picks in the game right now. And then I've kind of coupled them with Sheffield United have got great games and they're very cheap and they obviously keep clean sheets pretty well. So double up on them. And like you already mentioned, Soyuncu's basically been a mainstay of Sky all season. He's dropped off a little bit, quite considerably actually in the last few weeks. But he's still just such a cheap price. And Leicester also have a great run after initially a bad couple of games. So I still think he could be good. Yeah. And when you move into midfield, I mean, De Bruyne again has been a mainstay. I think Traore and Grealish are probably because midfield options are just so bad in general, and there doesn't seem to be many. I think just not spending too much money there is quite key. And Traore and Grealish probably offer some of the best value. They've also got that star quality. Whenever those two take to the pitch, they're always in the frame for that man of the match. Just because they're so, they light it up. Basically, they do things other players can't. So I think they're quite good. And then you've got with the structure in mind, I've got two most expensive forwards in the game, just so then you can interchange those players regarding on whoever you want. Whichever striker you want. You want Jimenez for a day, you want Vardy for a day. It's absolutely fine. So that's kind of what I did as a blueprint, and I always start like that when I'm making a team, and then afterwards I'll start to factor in, well, where can I chop and change to maybe get those extra captains and do various things. So that was kind of just designed as that blueprint. I think it works reasonably well. I mean, there's some issues with Man City that maybe are causing a lot of people headaches at the moment as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem that I mean across all fantasy games, but in Sky as well, where Man City are playing West Ham. It's obvious a Man City player is the best captain that day. West Ham defence is awful. The likes of Aguero and De Bruyne just stand out captaincy shouts. But then it all tails off. Then you can get some 3-for-1, 4-for-1 type of situations going on where you can transfer out immediately after your overhaul, say Aguero, and then you can get in, say for example, another Liverpool attacker. You could get in Jamie Vardy, you could get in Jimenez. Just before we come to your actual main team, which I thought was your differential team, so that proves what I know. Your actual main team. What I want to do is something a little exercise I did just before we came on air. Without reeling off the fixtures, I'm just going to name a bunch of players, and this is essentially my captains from now until the end of March, because we don't know the match days from April because the TV fixtures haven't been released, but we do know right up until the end of March. There's 21 captains, I think I've got that right, from now until the end of March. And once again, as I said, it's not the actual matchup, so I'm just going to list the players that I'm thinking of captaining on all of those days. First off, Richarlison. Then I'm looking at Aguero. And then the next day after that, which is the following Friday, next week, Jimenez or a Leicester player, possibly Barnes or Vardy. Then Salah. So Salah's name's going to be mentioned a lot. Then Grealish, I think is a good captain. And then a Chelsea-Manchester United game, not sure. Reece James, possibly. Fernandes is a Manchester United player you could hop on, perhaps for, say, Aguero, De Bruyne even. And then Jimenez, then Salah again, so that's the second mention for Salah. Jimenez is creeping in, the second mention for Jimenez. Then a Leicester player, Barnes, Vardy, Sionji. This is where Sionji could come in handy if you don't want any other Leicester. Then Salah, Jimenez again. You mentioned there's a theme here. Then Salah. So basically, I could at the moment I'm coping with just Salah and Jimenez. Then one of a Man City player or Richarlison. So Richarlison's being mentioned again as a backup. Grealish or a Leicester player. KDB. This is where suddenly Man City starts to become attractive again. So KDB's rearing his head, and in turn, if someone wanted Aguero again. So in terms of so after Aguero would be my captain against West Ham. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11. There's 11 more captaincy days when I'm not even considering a Man City player. So it is making me think I could probably hop on and off Man City over quite a long period of weeks, really. And then after that time, I'll go for, so from that 12th week, KDB or Richarlison, Grealish Leicester, KDB, Jimenez, Salah. There's a Spurs-West Ham game that may not go ahead, but if it does, I'm not sure about a captaincy at the moment for that. Then Salah again, then Leicester again. You see the theme there. Leicester are key. Grealish is very handy. Richarlison's potentially handy. Salah is just there. I refuse to go into this overhaul without Salah. And I think Man City are great at first, and then you can do without them for about 10 or 11 captaincy days, I think. But I don't know what you think about that when it comes to those types. You've probably done that as well on your proper thing on the spreadsheet and stuff. But is that broadly similar to you? Do you feel that those are the sorts of players you're looking at?
Yeah, so going back to the template side that's probably still on the screen, then basically what I do from there is what you've just said. I go through each individual match day and I think, well, who would be my preferred captain on each day? And if a player keeps popping up all the time, then really I need to just get them in. And Jimenez is certainly one of those names. Now there's probably a discussion around, you've already got Traore in our team, or we probably should have, because he's just so cheap. And it's like, who do you want your captains to be for these individual days? And Leicester and Wolves are really key in this. I mean, on paper, you would say Jimenez and Vardy are probably the best two captains. So do you want them in your team, and do you want them for a long time? They've got great games. So I think there's a strong argument to include those. However, you can't have everyone. If you want Salah, or if you want Aguero, if you want Danny Ings, if you want all these other people that are throwing their name in the hat, you've got to look where else you can cover them. And with Leicester and Wolves, I think we're quite lucky that we have got Traore, we have got Maddison, Pereira, Soyuncu, who could do a job, and so much will come down to those individual days and how many points your captain gets. It's a real teaser, and there's no legitimate answer, I don't think, here. No. It's just, how do you want to play it? Do you want to try and go for the best captain, but he might not end up being the best captain as a result of affecting your structure? The one thing I do know is I would certainly look at having a Leicester and a Wolves player in your team for the long haul. Yeah. And you just kind of had to decide who is it that you want.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm probably going with Jimenez and possibly Vardy, but I'm considering Pereira, which is just to cover the Vardy option, maybe.
Yeah, well, we had a question actually we've got some questions coming up, but in the live chat, we have a question from Kieran, was saying Barnes an option too.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do we think there? I mean, he is the form player really for Leicester.
He is. Yeah. He's one I've definitely looked at as well. And again, it comes down to, if I don't want to have Vardy, if I want to have a front line of, say, Salah, Jimenez, and Danny Ings, which is one I've looked at quite a lot, then can I use Barnes in midfield to cover the Leicester captain rather than a defender? And right now, he does look a really good option. I always have that worry with him, though, that maybe his minutes will be managed or things will change later down the line. But I think maybe he's got past that. What do you think? Do you think Barnes is now a staple of that team?
I think Barnes is still partially a wait and see. And this is where there's a slight crossover with FPL with me. I do have him earmarked to bring in, but not just yet in FPL. And I'm pretty similar with Sky as well with that. I possibly could start with him in my main team. But as you said, I don't know whether Vardy's going to suddenly become indispensable again or just a bit of a waste of a place. I've got Sionju in because I do think he is... like if I get confused, not sure which Leicester player to get. I've always got a backup there of Sionju, and I'm going to hope for a clean sheet. I can hope for some kind of tier passing bonus there. I mean, Kieran is again in the live chat. He's very active here. Was asking about, is jumping back and forth between Vardy and Jimenez an option or a waste of transfers? So that brings into the discussion whether you need the likes of Traore, whether you need the likes of Traore or Barnes at all, and whether you could just go for that Vardy Jimenez. But yeah, what do you think of that? Just using your transfers in that way.
Okay, so yeah, this is one I've debated. I don't really see that it's good swap. Although they're very similar price, they're 0.1 different. On paper that would make sense, but I don't think the fixtures really lend themselves to that. So, like somebody has commented later down, I think there's an option to maybe go with both alongside Salah, or even if you want to have someone else like Ings, ignore Salah and obviously go with the Van Dijk captain option instead, which is very risky, I think, because their games are so great. But you could just stick with both of them in your team, and I think that would save you a headache. So that's an option to go with. Or it's like we've already said, I think you pick one, you pick Vardy or Jimenez, who you want, who's got the most captain days, who you think is going to get the most out of that, and then you cover the other option with your Traore, your Barnes, or your Pereira. Now, the fact that Pereira, I think, is just such a good option overall, just because he's got so many strings to his bow, I'm edging towards that Jimenez is my main pick over Vardy, and then Pereira is my cover because he's almost as good as Vardy points-wise anyway.
I think he can be. And I think he can be as well, because Leicester have great fixtures coming up. They've had bad fixtures recently, and they're still carrying on slightly. They've got, they've got Man City coming up. But I feel with Leicester that there will be clean sheet. I think you can get, even if Sionju doesn't get the bonus, I think he could at least get 12 points, as your captain. So he's a fail-safe. But I agree with you. I think Pereira is the one. He's the one that could get you. He's the sexy pick. He's going to get you the goals and assists, you think? Yeah,
and the fact in their good run, I think it's after maybe two games after that, their good run picks up, or 2 or 3 games, something like that. And then Ndidi, you would hope, is back and fully fit, which I think made a big difference over this period. They had a combination of tough games and losing, one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. So I can't see it not returning to good form. Plus, they don't really have any other distractions, do they? So that's the other part of Leicester that really appeal.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at this is your actual team. So what we've got at the moment is a blueprint team. This is a sort of nice and easy. Here's your do it yourself Overhaul side. Get this lot in. You're probably going to do okay because you've got lots of nice price points. But this is actually your main one. So this is what you're going with. So I haven't got a drum roll special effect. So people have to just do it in
At the moment, Joe, subject to change. Obviously.
Subject to change. So I'm going to go through this for the benefit of those listening on the podcast. So you've got Alisson in goal, Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold. It's a 4-3-3. You've still got that triple Liverpool. And then you've gone for Pereira, who you mentioned why you were going for Pereira. Got Baldock there. Richarlison is in there. So someone I was mentioning as a possible captain, a definite captain for one of the day and a possible one for others. Traore and Grealish still there. Great value. And then you've got Aguero, Ings and Jimenez. So do you want to tell us about some of those players as well? In particular, Baldock we haven't really mentioned and Ings.
Yes, so this is the team. Obviously, yeah, I'm currently going with taking into account some of the fixtures. Are not really annoying first week.
Yeah.
It is with the split up. It's just so frustrating. Alisson or Henderson are basically the only two keepers I've considered. I have kind of looked at Pope just because they also have great games, just to be a bit different because you can't really get a Burnley defender, whereas you can get Sheffield United defenders at their price. So you could cover it that way. Just to have that extra option. If Burnley suddenly later down the line have a single match day where you might want to have a captain, then it's good to have a variety of people, right? So if you think Pope and Henderson are going to score relatively close to each other and you've already got a Sheffield United defender, it's just something to think about because we could get rescheduled fixtures later down the line and you don't want to spend transfers. So it's a consideration. But ultimately, Alisson, he's not at the top of the point scoring list because obviously he was injured for a large part of it. But that extra 2 points for a clean sheet for a goalkeeper compared to a defender means you can get Liverpool clean sheets for 8 million. None of their defenders are that price. Gomez is 9.2, so he's the closest to it. So he's essentially like a defender who's getting tier 1 passing bonus every game. So I think he's still a strong consideration, and a lot of people would like to go with him. Plus, I think Henderson maybe misses a couple of games due to playing Man United and some blanks and stuff.
Essentially misses one if you think it kind of structurally. So he definitely misses the Manchester United one, which is game week 32, I think it is. And then he also misses, there's a blank week as well that he'll miss due to League Cup final commitments. But of course, he's going to get that back. So overall, he'll get it back later on. So that's what we're looking for here, sort of long term. But
that's it. The blanks don't really matter as much in Sky, do they?
No. The reason I like Alisson is because I don't know what sort of Liverpool we're going to get once they've won the league. I don't know whether we're going to start seeing more kids play. I don't know whether they're going to start conceding more. But you've got Alisson in there, and that's an easy swap to the next best goalkeeper, who's Henderson. Now, if you've got Henderson already, you're missing a game, definite. And then you're missing out, as you said, on the potential of Alisson early on. So it's a nice... I think if you haven't got many transfers left, but I think if you're going to use a transfer, Alisson down to Henderson down the line might be a possibility. Gives you that flexibility, and I don't see anything wrong with that because we don't know what Liverpool defence is going to be, what shape they're going to be in April. They could all be just drunk because they've won. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, I think it's just so hard to overlook the Liverpool defence and how it's not just the fact that they keep the clean sheets, it's the fact that they've just got bonus and goal threat and everything else to go with them. It's exactly how we thought they would be at the start of the season, which didn't really materialise to begin with. And every time they keep a clean sheet, you could argue you're actually going down unless you've got 3, 4, 5 of them, because I think so many people, I think Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold are going to be a staple hold of just about everyone else's team. So how many extra could he fit on for those extra points, essentially? So, Pereira we've already discussed. I don't think there's much to say here. He possibly could be my captain for the Leicester games. However, I have got the options of bringing in Vardy if I want to up top. So he's just kind of in the background. I think for now you can ignore Vardy for the 2 games because obviously away to Wolves, and then I think they play Man City next. I think from memory, and then I think they play Norwich on a individual game day. So I think that's the point where do I want Vardy or am I going to go Pereira? I can decide at that point. Baldock's in there just simply to cover Sheffield United defence. They've got such good games. He has occasionally picked up some attacking points, but it's more his price. Him and Soyuncu are about the same. And it's kind of a coverage option for me. I kind of probably do prefer from this point to the end of the season Soyuncu just about over him.
Yeah.
However, I just want that different captain option in case with rearranged games
Yeah.
and stuff, I can captain a Sheffield United player, so I haven't got Henderson.
Yeah.
So yeah, Traore and Grealish have already been discussed.
Yeah.
Grealish bad games, but he does offer a captain pretty early on against Spurs and another one maybe later down the line. He's also just got that star quality where, like you said, in any game he can turn it on and potentially be an option.
It's almost fixture proof in the Sky game because he's got that man of the match. He's so obviously the best player on the pitch in most games he's playing. So,
exactly. Yeah. And it's just with the lack of other options, really. I mean, I've looked at even St. Maxim at this point. He hasn't got great points, but they've just got such good games. He's also got that star quality, but when he takes to the pitch, he potentially can be man of the match at any point. So I think he is maybe an outside shot. There's Barnes, there's a number of players around that sort of price you could look at. There's even Fred, people have mentioned as well. He's been picking up passing bonus, so you could look at him. Moving on, and so Richarlison, we all know he's got the initial first captain game against Crystal Palace. Now, I guess the beauty of Richarlison is it's not just goals. He gets tackles, he gets shots on target. He's done really well points-wise. He's just got so many strings to his bow that essentially one goal is going to be if he can get one goal, he's probably going to be 10 points doubled to 20.
Yeah.
So you're kind of backing that, I guess. And as a safety net, he may just get tackles as well. So
it's quite a nice price as well. So if someone's going into this, for example, like me, without Jimenez straight off the bat, or without Ings, for example, you can make that move more or less if you've got a bit in the bank or a bit of money spare as well. Richarlison can move on to, if you're only playing two strikers up front, you can move Richarlison to that third striker, which is quite useful. I think he's quite useful. He's a useful player and a useful price, even though
he's just got terrible games. That's the problem. Yeah. A lot of people will be having an Everton player in and then taking them out straight away because their games are so bad. And I have thought about just completely missing that game and going for someone else. However, I'm probably maybe on my own here, but I'm quite happy to hold Richarlison I think, even through the tough games. I think that's where I'm edging at the moment. Going without Kevin De Bruyne, I guess, is the big talking point here.
Okay, so what? Because we discussed. I discussed my list of captains, probably very broadly similar to people you're considering as well. And KDB doesn't figure for about 10, 11 captaincy days. So it sounds actually quite risk-free. But do you think there's a problem missing out on KDB for all of those other days where, it could be a tough fixture, but he could still score or assist?
Well, he's going to still be incredibly high owned, I would have thought. So it's definitely a concern. He's obviously, potentially the best player in the whole league. So there is that to worry about. But it's a combination of things, really. It's the fact that, first of all, I'm in around 900th place overall. I want to secure that top 100 finish. And I have to pick areas where I think I can be a little bit different to people just to get there, I think. I don't think I can get to the top 100 just on captains alone. So I've kind of identified he's a player that maybe a lot of people above me will go for. And as we've already mentioned, Man City have quite a few blanks and they're obviously still in the Champions League. Where's their focus going to be at? Potentially he's going to blank in a few games. If reading his fixtures, I think this is going by, it's a tweet that Adam Holcroft did. And the game weeks are out because it mentions FPL, but essentially we've been looking at a blank Man United away, Burnley at home, blank Liverpool at home. Now, to me, only really the Burnley at home is the one you'd really worry about there. And even there's a game against Leicester coming up where I think they play Real Madrid 3 days after. So it's just a calculated risk, I guess, that I'm going to go without him and hope that as I'm not needing him as captain, it's going to pay through, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see on that one. I think it's I think it's an interesting way of looking at it. Because some other people like myself, I'm thinking of starting with KDB, but like Aguero, using a couple of transfers, because I think I've got the Sky game as sort of, it just says unlimited for my transfers now, but from my memory, I think I've got 15 left, and I'm quite willing to spend 2, go all in on that West Ham, and then KDB and Aguero out for some of those other players that we've been mentioning, the likes of Jimenez, the likes of Ings. You got Ings in there, so why Ings? Is it great fixtures? I haven't put a Southampton player as any captains of any days. But so why have you gone
No,
for
they're
Ings?
not really. No, and this is a debate I'm still having with myself here. Is do I include Ings because their games are so good, like amazing. He's obviously the linchpin for their team, the main man, and 9 million is a fairly fair price for him. But like you say, he's not a captain option, but he is a differential, so that's playing against my mind. But then, interestingly, I could move to a 5-3-2, and I could switch Ings to Gomez, for example, who are about the same price. Gomez is 9.2, Ings is 9. So then I have to sit back and think to myself, will Gomez match or outscore Ings over this period? I think there's a very good chance of that, and I still don't really know the answer because it comes down to the clean sheets. If Liverpool are keeping clean sheets, then Gomez is getting 10 points a game. Now Ings is going to need to score every single week, which he has done
Which you can do.
previously. He can do, yeah. But he hasn't of late. So it's really Liverpool's clean sheets versus Ings scoring. I think Gomez is probably a safer pick, but Ings could get a brace or a hat-trick in a game and suddenly he outscores Gomez over that period. So I'm still going to debate right up to the finish line. I think I'm still not 100% set on that. The only when you go 3-5-3-2, sorry, it does limit you as well. That's the other option that's playing into my mind. Suddenly I can't do certain things that I want to do with my forward line if need be. So that's that.
Well, that's why I like 4-4-2. I like 4-3-3 at the moment because what you're talking about there is it's that flexibility, and I really like. I mean, I'm going to put my team up now. So your team I obviously like, and so I'm in a different position, and I'm it's mine's like sort of a bit like your blueprint team, but I have a few ideas around it. So I'm in a different position. I'm in the top 2,000, so I'm 1,900 and something. I've got around 15 transfers left. I would love to get in the top 100, top 1,000. Minimum I would like. So I've gone for Henderson in goal. I'm not too bothered about that one missing game completely. We've got Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold. So there's my Liverpool defensive shield. Sionju, I think, is a very handy pick at the moment. Baldock. Then I have gone for De Bruyne. I've gone for Richarlison as my captain, first off, and I may keep him. Traore and Grealish, as you mentioned, they're just great value, and they're just good players to have in. It's very hard you can get a player outside of defence who's it's that type of price. And is capable of man of the match and various other returns. And then up front I've got Aguero and Salah. Now your team, you're looking at swapping Aguero for Salah. I'm going for the getting Salah in straight off the bat. I don't want to mess around with him. But with Aguero, I'm definitely going to move him. I say definite. I'm pretty certain I'm going to move him to Jimenez because I've highlighted Jimenez as a key captain player. And then De Bruyne is the issue. And De Bruyne, I could move to Vardy. I could move to possibly Ings. Or, and this would be really off the bat, I would give myself a captaincy for that Chelsea-Manchester United game and go for Fernandes and be done with it. And just see. I feel that's a bit more risky though. And I probably won't do that. But I'm just saying that because it's an option. But the plan really is to move Aguero on. I think that's the key to it. And I'm not sure about defence. And Pereira's tempting me a lot. I don't know what you think about that team I put up.
Well, I think if you look at it, we've probably got 8 or 9 of the same players. So essentially what you've done is you've changed Alisson to Henderson and you've changed Pereira to Soyuncu.
Yeah.
In order to basically have where I've got Ings, you could have a Vardy. Essentially, or a Jimenez in that spot. So I do like that. So eventually, I think your front line will probably end up being Salah, Jimenez, Vardy, right? Once you've moved the City out, and therefore it's pretty much the exact same team as me, except I've got Ings instead of one or Vardy or Jimenez, and are covering Leicester with my defender instead. So I could think about what you're doing, downgrade my keeper and my defender, so to give me that flexibility, and it's also something I've thought about. So yeah, I really like it. It's great. I think a lot of the teams are going to be built around these bases, to be honest.
Cheers. I mean, my only concern is something you raised, being 900th of the world and wanting to get in the top 100. You have to do something different. And my main concern there is Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold. There we go. Everyone's got them. Sionju, probably a lot of people have them. Henderson, blah, blah, blah. You just go through the list. And Salah, obviously, there. So my main one, I'm thinking that some people might not go for Aguero straight off the bat because his fixtures aren't that great following this. And he's not needed for the captaincy for weeks and weeks. So that's a possibility there. I don't know if Jimenez is going to be that popular. I'm not sure. And then De Bruyne, I'm going to want to move to someone, and I am reluctant currently to move to Vardy, and I may move him to someone like, say, Barnes, and have loads of money in the bank to play around with for my next transfer. So that's a possibility. But I don't know what I'll do. I'll put up my B team. So this is 9,000th in the world. So I've got no chance of top 100. Well, unless something amazing happens. So I'm taking a few more risks than that. So I've gone for a bit of a basis of a normal team. So my differential team, Henderson in goal. I still like that value there. Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold. Even in a differential team, I don't want to do without them. Pereira I went for as well. As you said, Reece James gives me a captaincy, a cheap captaincy for that Chelsea-Manchester United game. He's also good value, and I also can move him to a Sheffield United defender. I can move him to Sionju, that kind of thing. No KDB. I've gone for 4-4-2. I've got Richarlison in there because I want to have a captaincy. I've gone straight off for Barnes. I haven't messed around with I'll wait and see. I'm just going, he is my Leicester coverage. So I don't think I'm going to go for Vardy, who'd be popular. I'm going to go for the less popular Barnes. I've got Mahrez in there. I think he could potentially get me quite a few points early on. And I think Sterling's out, so he's just a differential there, and I may keep him. Martinelli for a bit of Arsenal coverage in there. And he's cheap as well, and he's just going to be very low owned. And I've got
6.3 million. Yeah,
6.3 million. I've always liked it. He passes the eye test. And we've got Aguero and Salah up top. Aguero is going to move to Jimenez again. So it's what I do with that in terms of maybe Mahrez, maybe Richarlison moving to, say, for example, Ings is a very good shout. So this is a differential team, really. But I don't know what you think about some of that team and some of those names there. I'm sort of trying to get from 9,000 really high up. So other people might be in that same position. What sort of, are those players good enough for that, or do you think others?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few differentials. I think it's so hard to, you want to go different, but at the same time you can just get left behind, and you've got like a collection of some of the ones you need, the Van Dijks, the Alexander-Arnolds, and then a few cheeky ones like James. Chelsea have really got some great games. They've got some really bad games, and then they've got a great run after that. And if he's playing, he is going to be fantastic value potentially. So I do like him. Same with Martinelli. They've got a couple of home games coming up. He's so cheap. He's basically playing, the Sadio Mane role, the left wing forward almost. Rotation might be an issue with him, maybe moving forward, but I think for these next two games, he possibly safe. I mean, I spoke to some Arsenal fans. They don't really know what's going on up there there at the moment. No. I mean, at the end of the day, if you want Aubameyang up top, which it seems like Arteta does, then Martinelli's the only one who can play that left wing role, I think. So it's looking pretty good for him. Yeah,
I haven't earmarked Arsenal as a captaincy for any days so far, but it's nice to have the option. But Aubameyang, for a captaincy, I mean, as a backup captaincy, I don't mind paying 6.2 or whatever it is for a midfielder. But Aubameyang, as you said, you mentioned Vardy, Jimenez, you've got Ings, we've got Salah, Aguero at start, and then back on him perhaps. You've got lots of options. Aubameyang, I'm just not even considering him. But what do you think?
No, I'm with you. I'm not really looking at him. He could be good in a couple of games. I mean, a move from Aguero straight to Aubameyang is kind of tempting for the Newcastle game. Yeah. It is home to Newcastle, isn't it, I think? Yeah.
Yeah.
But aside from that, no, I don't think so. They just haven't shown me enough that he can do anything that some of the other strikers can do for cheaper or or potentially you can get even more points. Just comparing him to the likes of Vardy, Jimenez, Salah, I just don't think there's any competition really there at the moment.
Saeed,
I think
I was just going to say in the live chat, Saeed has said, I'm not sure about this draft that I've got on the screen at the moment.
Well,
to be honest,
differential one.
I'm not. It's a differential one. So,
yeah.
I
honestly think the best way to go, if you really just want to be completely different here in a way, but still quite solid, I think a good option is to ignore your Salahs, your Agueros, all those people, is to go for a front line of, there's plenty of players like Tammy Abraham, Pookie, Chris Wood, Ings. There's loads of strikers who can still do really well and are really cheap. And then you could just have an entire back five of Liverpool. You could have Alisson and all 4 defenders.
Okay.
So I think that's something I've looked at for like a differential team where you're going to cash in every time Liverpool keep a clean sheet. You're going to be one up on everyone else because I doubt anyone's going to have 5 Liverpool defenders. And then you have all these differential strikers in the mix where if they fire, suddenly your team's going to fly up the ranks. I think that's the kind of thing you need to look at if you really want to make drastic moves. Obviously, every time your Agueros, your Salahs have a haul, that's when you fall down. But you just have to back the fact that they might not happen.
I think that's intriguing. I may rethink this. It's Martinelli I'm not sure of, and I do, and going back to our original point really is that this team's so far down in the rankings that I think it's a question of whether I need to have a kind of a spine of shields to protect my rank, and at the same time for the rest of it have some differentials, but or just go mad differential.
I think what's at the end of the day, there's no history in it. It's a backup team. You may as well go mad, I think. Yeah, and so in that team, you've got Van Dijk, so you could use him as your Liverpool captain. So I'd risk going without Salah in that team, for example.
It's intriguing. I do like one player I do like the look of is Mahrez at the moment. I think if someone wants a quick boost, I think Aguero is well owned. Now, we just had something from Kieran in the live chat saying that Aguero is 54% owned in the top 1,000s. So when I was thinking Aguero could be a bit of a differential for the captain, I was completely wrong. He's going to be massively captained. But I was just thinking about...
that's taken into account the teams right now as the Overhaul's tinkering. So at this exact moment, he's sat 54%. I think it's that fear of if he goes mad, you're just missing out on 30 points potentially. So, I think he's going to be heavily owned for that game.
I think Mahrez, though, is going to be a nice differential. And I think if I wanted to go full differential, Mahrez captain, I think that would be the ultimate for me for that day. But you're betting against Aguero. What I wanted to do, I just put it up. We usually this one's a bit different because it's more of a sort of overall planning side of it. Before we come to some more community questions, I just want to put up the picture of the bonus Kings bonus players over the last. I've done it for the last 6 matches because we want to look a bit long term at this really. So it's just a few names to throw in there. Some of those obviously we've already mentioned, but these are the sort of the Harry Arters, the boring players. The ones that get points for just turning up, and they can be interesting, and they can be like steady players. I mean, every player's going to score every week, but Fernandinho is probably going to get a passing tier. So it's that kind of thing. So we've got Fernandinho doing really well. Fred again, possible. I know people are considering him. Jordan Henderson, I'm not sure about him. What do you reckon about Jordan Henderson? I just worry that we're going to see lots of two pointers coming up.
Yeah, he's been on a real golden patch, hasn't he? Basically, the reason he has been getting that passing bonus, but he's also been adding the goals and assists and man of the match to that. Now, how long that can last for Jordan Henderson, I'm not sure. I mean, he's playing so well that potentially it could. But then I also factor in they have got a lot of midfield options, Liverpool, and I think they may use him in their Champions League game. So I think there might be a bit of rotation when it comes to him once the league's sewn up.
Definitely.
Also factor in Fabinho's back soon, and I think basically Henderson's passing bonus coincided with Fabinho being injured.
It does, yeah. Fabinho just kills Henderson.
So that's a concern. So for me, I think it's a leave for him for now, and just sort of hope that golden patch ends.
We've got a few more boring players coming up. Rodri as well. Can't get more boring than that. But as we said, it's something for towards the end of the season. If you want to go, full on for Man City, just not at the moment. It's just not. They're not captainable for ages. I think obviously we've got Van Dijk in there and Pereira, so that shows their worth. In terms of goalkeepers, Dubravka and Guita are two options, but I just can't see past Alisson and Henderson. I've put a couple of names in, interesting names in there, because they are either injured or coming back from injury, and that's Matip from Liverpool. So if you wanted to take a risk perhaps further down the line, I don't know what the Liverpool defence is going to look like in a couple of months, so could be an interesting player for the overhaul, possibly, if you're looking for a differential. And Pogba. Now, whenever Pogba returns, if he returns, I don't know what kind of Pogba we're going to get, but he's an interest. He's not. I'm not saying to get him in for an overhaul, but he's just a player to consider further down the line. Manchester United in general. I mean, you're a fan. I mean, are they just a no-go at the moment in the Sky, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's Brandon Williams reared up his head at 4.8 million as a potentially cheap option, but then he got dropped for a couple of games, and you're always going to have that worry. So I won't be going there. He's probably the only one I'd maybe look at. And then Fred at 7.9 million is kind of interesting just because of his price, the fact that he covers a captain day against Chelsea, and he has been getting that bonus. But yeah, I don't know if I can just bring myself to get Fred in my team. I know he's been playing so well of late. But then you add in, Bruno Fernandes has just been added to that team. We don't know really what the impact of that's going to be. You've also, like you say, got Pogba, and you've got Matomne, who's injured at the moment, coming back. Now, on paper, I would have thought you might have Matomne as the defensive midfielder, and ideally you'd probably want Fernandes and Pogba as your two, and then that would mean Fred missing out. Whether that, Pogba may never come back. It's probably a pipe dream that I think he'll probably won't see him again, but it's just another headache that I don't really want, and I don't think he offers enough for me to consider him. Grealish is 7.9. He might not get the passing bonus like Fred, but I feel like he'd still outscore him.
It's Fernandes is the one I'm looking at, because we don't know yet, but I just feel he's a great player, and Manchester United squad is pretty thin in midfield at the moment, so I just feel that he could be, from now until the end of the season, especially Manchester United fixtures picking up. You know when it is when you get these captaincy days and you haven't got a captain and you think, what the hell?
The new shiny toy. Sky do love their new player. All eyes will be on him. If he does anything against Chelsea, he'll be man of the match. Yeah.
That's a good point. We've got some questions from the community. Min asks, is Mane worth it for the overhaul? Is another player, Liverpool player, best for that place? That's an interesting question because we don't know about Mane, but we will. Unlike with FPL, where the deadline is this weekend, Sky, we get the benefit of a press conference next week and some information. If you find out Mane is fit and raring to go, would you get him in? Would you consider him?
I'd certainly consider him because he's been fantastic the whole season. That's a tricky one, isn't it? Salah's been so good of late, but that has kind of coincided with Mane not being a factor, and that also plays into my thinking of, well, when Mane's back, is that going to happen again to Salah? And therefore, he won't be quite this stalwart that he's been of late, and that suddenly you can captain Van Dijk again. So what I would say is Mane coming back, for the cheaper price, it's a 50. They're both great players. They're both fantastic. Either one is a good pick, I think. However, I would say more impactful would be the fact that do you need either of them if they're both back? Because they almost, I don't want to say take points away from each other, but they can't win a game 8-0 every single game. And Mane is generally the one who drifts more centrally when they both play.
So another player I'm considering for my differential side is Firmino. Because, and we mentioned about the difference between Aguero and Man City's fixtures and many other sides. So Aguero's got, as you said, you mentioned, got West Ham, got a blank, then you've got Leicester, and then Manchester United, Burnley. It's just a blank. It's just blanks, Leicester, bad fixtures, not interested. Whereas if I go from Aguero straight to Firmino over that period has got Norwich, West Ham, Watford and Bournemouth. And Firmino I've had in my pre-overhaul side and I've been really chuffed with him.
Yeah, I had him too, yeah.
I just think for a differential side, or a main side, what do you think, Firmino?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? We've all created a lot of us created these teams where basically we've got 6, 7, 8, 9 Liverpool players in our team because we all knew that we had the overhaul to bail ourselves out. Now, all that's been happening for me, and I think for everyone else, is every time Liverpool have played, or we've just been rising in rank continuously because Liverpool are just so good. You haven't got that limitation on how many players you can have in your team like FPL, and it's worked. So now we get to this overhaul, and we're probably ending up with less Liverpool players than we had previously. But I think that could be a play, Joe. You could just ignore a lot of these days, these captains, this riffraff, and just have as many Liverpool as you can fit in your team, and it might still work out. I mean, who's to say it won't?
I'm very tempted. It's very tempted because, as you said, it's just worth it. I know Dan Cox, who's won it, didn't he? He's got one of his teams got 7 Liverpool players.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just been so good. And who's to say it's going to stop anytime soon? When you haven't got that overall to bail yourself out, and it's the worry of, like you said, if Liverpool win the league, we don't quite know what's going to happen. Are they going to start to rotate? And suddenly you're stuck with 7 or 8 Liverpool players in your team, and then you might have to address it. I know there's things they're sort of out of our control a little bit, but the safe side of me wants to say, I don't want to do that just in case that happens. But I still think it could work if you just sit there and ignore all captain days. Just put as many Liverpool as you can into your team. With those, I think you still probably do pretty well.
And I think you might do well just in the first 4 weeks or so. I mean, those fixtures I read out. I mean, they're just so enticing for Liverpool. Glenn Roy and Ollie Paul both asked about Bruno Fernandes. I think we pretty much covered that. Someone I'm, a watching brief, as it were. Sean Kenny, is Fred a good enabler? We've covered that really. Not convinced at the moment.
No.
Benny Blanco asks, for those new to the game, I believe he's new to the game as well, what is a reasonable first rank? So what should you hope for, expect in your first season as a Sky player?
Well, I think it depends. If you come into Sky and you're already a dab hand at fantasy in other games, and you've taken up some advice of other people, etc., you've looked at pods such as this and all that stuff, I think you've got a very realistic chance of getting top 1,000 in your first season. I think that would be a really good benchmark. However, if you're coming to this completely brand new, you've treated it as a little bit more casually, or you haven't really got any fantasy experience, then top 5,000 would be a fantastic go.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us guys who've been playing it a long time, we aim for the top 100 every single season. It's getting harder and harder without doubt, but that's kind of I guess the equivalent of the top 10k in FPL, I imagine. So that's how I look at it anyway.
Dan Cox has just appeared in a live chat, so I just mentioned him, and he's appeared by magic and has just informed us that the team I mentioned, but we had 7 Liverpool players, has gone from 6,000 to 1,500 in the last few weeks. So, as you were saying about it being a viable option, it is indeed a viable option. His cheeky 7 Liverpool team is better than my main team at the moment in terms of rank. So good strategy.
And that's what I was saying, Joe, about if you want to climb the ranks really heavily, when we're looking at that differential team, you have to, I think, look at blocks.
Yeah.
It's always been the way. It's not just in Sky, it's in the Sun, which Dan plays as well and has actually done really well in that. Basically putting all your eggs in one basket or a couple of baskets can really pay out, because
I'm sold.
You're not limited.
I'm sold on it. I'm gonna have a massive rethink of my differential side. I'm pottering around looking at passing tiers for whatever different players, and I'm just gonna look at the Liverpool team. Bingo. Let's move on to some other questions. Phil Appleby asked what to do with Sarr. So basically the cheap defender. So we're both keen on Traore and Grealish at the moment, but are there any other options? Well, I know we mentioned Harvey Barnes. Are there any other players we should mention?
Yeah, I think he just means kind of a cheap slot, really.
Cheap
so
enabler
could be
midfielder.
Yeah, could be midfield, could be defence. To be honest, Martinelli's one you've said about that we could look at. We've got Barnes, we've got Traore. There's a few names I've written down here. Sander Berge for Sheffield United. They've got fantastic games. He's 6.6 million. However, we don't really know too much about him. He did pick up tackle bonus, I think, in his first game.
My Harry Arter klaxon is sounding.
Exactly. So maybe him. I still think Cantwell at 5.8 is still just a great option all round. He's just so cheap. He's gonna get points continuously throughout the season. And then we're looking at the likes of, you've got Daniel James, 6.2 million maybe for Chelsea. You've got Tangana for Spurs. All of these players carry potential rotation. That's the thing you always have to bear in your mind. Tangana, if he can keep his spot, he's 4.8 million. He even covers a captaincy.
I hear that Ben Davies is back with the full team now.
Yeah, that's the worry. Exactly. He's played so well, though. There's an argument that he may stay in the team. So it's just one to think about, I guess. But out of all of them, it's basically Traore is probably the best Barnes 7.2.
Yeah.
And then if you want to back Martinelli or Campbell, are probably the ones I'd look at.
Phil Appleby asks, he raised a question about 4.5 defenders, or just go for the likes of Baldock and Sionju instead. So something I toyed with. I've been rocking Gilbert for the last however many months, and I've decided to go against that. Tangana was a option, and there are a few other options in that price bracket. But yeah, you just completely ruled out that 4.5 or so defender slot.
Yeah, I think I have. I think there's just too many good players now. We're aware of all the players now that are of a decent, like Traore and Grealish and stuff, where I don't think you really need them anymore. You can still get a really good team without having to have one of those. I still think Gilbert, all he has to do is play occasionally, and he's going to be worth the money because of what he can do elsewhere. But that what you can do elsewhere isn't really needed anymore, I think, because we've got the likes of Sionju, Baldock, Henderson, Traore, Grealish that. Yeah, he's not for me. I think buff it up to the Baldock or Sionju if you can.
I mean, I've got a lot to think about myself. I don't know about you, whether it's altered any the teams that you've put up. Have you got any different thoughts now?
Well, the only other thing that I keep thinking is, do I want to get Son in? Heung-min Son. Annoyingly, he takes up a striker spot.
Yeah.
Which, obviously an FPL
he's
is
on penalties now in the absence
of
potentially
on penalties. You could look at it, for example, Grealish has got really bad games, and if you want to be a bit different, you could say for that game where Grealish is captain against Spurs, he's probably one of the only ones you'd use him for. So if you go for Son as captain in that game against Villa, which is potentially very beneficial, then you could maybe look at someone else in midfield instead of Grealish again. And he's also got that Friday night game against his West Ham. If it goes ahead, I think it's unlikely to go ahead, but that's the worry. So you could be a captain there as well. So he's the only other one I've really thought of that is probably a little bit out of the main thought process. And just Spurs in general. Ori is still a good pick. He still gets tackle bonus. He still could cover one of those days. That's about it, really. Other than that, it's just, my Ings or my Gomez is my biggest issue, I think.
Yeah. Okay, well, whatever you decide, Luke, good luck with the Overhaul. Good luck with game weeks 27, 28 and beyond in Sky. I just wanted to add, I'll be looking to get the podcast version of this on. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, I've done that. And later this afternoon, this has been recorded at Friday lunchtime, but later Friday afternoon, we have a team news video and podcast. That'll be Andy and Neil will be discussing all the latest team news there as we go ahead. They'll be mainly looking at FPL, but obviously really handy for Sky managers as well, because if you're pre-overhaul, you don't want any surprise injuries to occur. So well worth listening out to. But for now, Luke, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It was a pleasure.